Hey, this is a VOD review of a game I played on an Artifact Anvil portal. And if you're struggling to figure out what comps to play on the new Artifact set, this is a comp that works out really well if you can get some very specific artifacts. So for Bard, you really want Wit's End, and for Tom Kent, you really want Forbidden Idol or Innervating Locket. And so here I find a Wit's End. I'm scouting the lobby, making sure that nobody else is picking the Bard or Tom Kench artifacts. And I'm off to the races to play this Bard Tom Kench reroll, which was very popular in one of the earlier patches of this set, but got nerfed a few times. But if you can get the right situation in place, you can get the artifacts. And if you can get the comp online, then it can be really strong and dominate what you come across. Pandora's items here is really strong. Triforce is also quite good, but specifically for Bard, you need to have 2 Gwinsu's Rage Blades with that Wit's End, and then some really strong tank items for Bards. So the other thing that's notable here is with Fortune transitions very naturally into Bard since you're already playing, you're going to be playing Zoe, you want Trick Shot with Story Weaver. So it just transitions very naturally. And particularly if you can get the 20 luck cash out with Fortune, that sets you up for another Artifact Anvil. And if you can get Wit's End with a Bard item like Forbidden Idol or Innervating Locket, or even stuff like Eternal Winter or Anima Visage, or if you're playing on, like, let's say a Living Forge Prismatic Augment, and you get multiple artifacts, if you can stack multiple artifacts, I've seen a Bard reroll with a Tom Kench 3, or actually with a Tom Kench 2 with 2 Forbidden Idols. That thing just scales infinite. I think I saw it grow to like over 25,000 HP one time, and it was only killed by a ghostly reroll comp because you need to stat. The fight took so long that there were just so many ghosts hovering around that Tom Kench. That was the only way that it could die. So this comp can be extremely strong on artifact if you can get artifacts in place. But the thing is, you still need to hit both Bard 3 and Tom Kench 3 to pull it off, unless you like have lots and lots of perfect artifacts. So it is very conditional. So here I'm going to take Tom Kench off of Carousel. I don't really care about the tier there since I have the Pandora's items. And I'm just continuously scouting, seeing, making sure that nobody else is going to contest. Because if you're contested on Bard reroll, you're not going to be able to hit, and in which case you're basically maxing out at like a top 5 or something along those lines. So I want to basically make sure that I can try to lose streak here, get the Fortune cash out, try to hit as many econ breakpoints as possible. Unfortunately, I need to hold my bows and Wit's End here, so it's a little bit hard to hit some econ intervals at times. There is another Fortune player, so I gotta make sure that I'm set up to lose against them. Fortunately, they're at level 5, while I'm at level 4, so I should be able to lose to them, but we'll see. So the other thing I want to keep in mind is what are all the units I need in place, and when am I going to roll to try to hit Bard 2 and Tom Kench 2 in order to stabilize. And so it really depends on how far you can push your luck for. So I get a 5 here. So basically towards the end of stage 3 is when I'm going to cash out, and I want to really stabilize hard right after the cash out. So that probably means I'm planning for a 4-1 level 7 roll down to hit Tom Kench 2 and Bard 2 in order to stabilize, since if I'm going to lose most of stage 3, I'm probably going to be... So stage 3 is 5 stage damage plus, let's say, an average of 4 unit loss. That's going to be around 10 damage per loss, and I need 5 losses, so that's going to be 50 damage. So I'm going to be around 20, let's say around 20 to 30 HP, which gives me about 2 lives. And I'm slamming those Gwinsus. And here, Best Friends is quite good for Bard. Bard just needs a ton of attack speed so that he can scale and go infinite. And the whole idea behind this comp is that you have a really strong front line in the form of Tahm Kench 3 that is really hard to kill, and then Bard just stacks up a ton of Gwinsu's Rage Blade stacks. And especially with Wit's End, it heals Bard, which makes sure that you are safe against backline access like Lilia, Morgana, and it also adds a lot of damage. So here I'm going to take more gold. I don't need more combat power right now since I'm trying to lose. I do have a ton of gold. And I'm continuing to scout to make sure that I'm going to lose. And I'm going to try to get Exalted in here as well. So in the past, I would sometimes try to slam, let's say, more damage items to try to kill some units. The problem is I've been really bad at just predicting how the fight's going to go. And so, especially with ramping items like Rage Blade, it can be almost like you could either just win by a little bit or lose by a lot anyway, since your front line's not very strong. I take another Tahm Kench off of Carousel. Unfortunately, I haven't hit any bards yet, but the 2 Tahm Kenches is very promising. Arguably, it's more important in order to stabilize by getting a strong front line with this comp, because even if you have a bard 2 with great items like I do here, if you don't have a strong front line, then you won't be able to stack up the Gwinsu's stacks, in which case you're going to die anyway. So it is a good thing that I have a good setup with. I'm basically guaranteed to get a Tahm Kench 2 pretty quickly on my roll down later. I'm holding the belt for a redemption, and I'm at 50 stacks, but I don't want to lose too much more. I don't actually mind winning here just to preserve HP, because if I lose here, I'm losing, I'm like probably going under 20 HP, which is 2 lives basically. But if I win, I might have 3 lives depending on how bad of a loss I take. But I do lose, and I get a huge cash out here, 65, which gives me 1 artifact anvil and a support anvil, which is great. So we'll see what we get when we pop it. Unfortunately, I don't get anything great here. I would ideally try to find something that's good on Tahm Kench. The good thing is that I have Pandora's item, and so I decide to just greed it, particularly since, and here Zeke's is great because it's good for Bard again for the attack speed. It does kind of grief my positioning a little bit with Best Friends value, and I can't really get the Kale value there. But I do stabilize here, fortunately. I almost lost to the Syndra with the Zhonya's. And I do need to hit that Tahm Kench 2. I have a little bit low APM, so ideally I should have been rolling down way more there to at least hit Tahm Kench and Bard 2. But I was fortunate to stabilize. And I have plenty of gold to try to hit. Last augment, Combat Caster or Stationary Support is good. I just want more frontline, and I got very fortunate with this ZZ Rot, which gives me more frontline and gives me really great Best Friends value since I'm rolling on 7. And here I finally stabilize with a Bard and a Tahm Kench 2. And I'm facing a Kiana 3, so I wanted to greed for a Dragon's Claw as that 3rd item, but I was just worried I was going to take a loss here. So plus I'm just waiting for this artifact to give me something decent for my Tahm Kench. It could be a Forbidden Idol would be the ideal. Innervating Locket is quite good. So Forbidden Idol, the way it works is that every time Tom Kent's shields, it adds to his health instead. And so then he could start getting a really high HP total. But innervating locket's really good too because it accelerates his healing. But even something like Eternal Winter or Anima Visage would be strong here. So there's just so many artifacts that Tahm Kench can take. And here I'm just denying the 5-cost Azir. I want more gold in order to hit my Bard and Tahm Kench. And I still need an anti-heal item. So ideally it would be like a Morello's or a red buff on my Soraka. And most of the lobby is still stuck on 1-cost or 1-star 4-cost like this Kaisa. So I know I'm still doing okay. This guy seems pretty strong with the ghostly reroll. He already has the Zyra 3. And so I'm a little bit worried about him because I have 2 losses here. Stage 4, you take 8 damage from the stage and 1 unit per unit loss. And I find the innervating locket, which is great. So this, I think, will really help me stabilize. Makes my frontline really strong. I have the best friends armor value. I have the stationary support dummy with the ZZ Rot portal. So even against this Hui and this Lily, I do take the loss. So I know at this point I have 1 life left and I need to go all in. I need to roll all the way down and hit on 5-1. I'm also holding these Nikos to try to hit a 3-star Nico. In the past, I would have also tried to hit like a Soraka 3 or Zoe 3, but I don't have items for them, and I just need to make sure I hit my main carries. So that was one big thing I learned through coaching is you just really just want to focus on the key core units and units that you can itemize. So I do have enough units for Nico. I hit the Bard 3. I was hoping to get a Morello here, but I was just so worried about dying that I slammed the TG. In hindsight, this battle was just a really easy victory, and so I probably should have greeted the Morello, but I was also thinking if I just survived long enough to hit the Tahm Kench 3 along with the Bard 3 and the Nico 3, it may not matter as much if I have the anti-heal, and I might be able to find some form of anti-heal off of Carousel later. So I'm playing against a level 9 Syndra Faded Dryad board. This is one of the strongest comps in the game right now, and I just steamroll it. So you can see, and this is without a Tahm Kench 3. So once you get your 3 stars online, this comp is extremely powerful. The main thing is having the right conditions to go for it in the first place. I'm still trying to find the Tahm Kench 3. The ghostly player I'm scared about because they have the Zyra 3, they have Malawi 3, and ghostly in particularly is good against scaling fights just because they get all of those Spectre stacks and then they can take down your main tank really quickly. This fight was also a little bit close, but not too bad. I'm still looking for the anti-heal. I want to get that Udyr, but Malala takes it, unfortunately. I was surprised that Malala didn't have anti-heal at this point, that he was looking for that. So that was a little disappointing, but we're still rolling for the Tahm Kench 3. Haven't found it yet. We get a little shred on Nico. Bard, especially with Wit's End, does a lot of mixed damage, so ideally you can have a little shred. You can have attack damage and magic damage shred. And this is the ghostly player is really close. And the healing on that Bard with the Wit's End was extremely important in that fight. And I finally hit the Tahm Kench 3. So now my comp is basically complete. I can start econing back up to try to get to level 8 and see what unit I can add there. You can see I'm 2 out of 3 exalted on the left-hand side. So I can just add on an exalted unit and get a bunch more damage onto my board. So I have a really good setup here. This Kiana almost kills my Bard, but again, that Wit's End with the, I think it's 30 or 35% healing kept Bard alive. And so you're just seeing the power of this comp put together now, especially with the Wit's End on the Bard and the Innervating Locket on the Tahm Kench. Plus the Nico 3 is extremely helpful as an additional support tank. I get the Aphelios in for 3 Exalted. I don't get an anti-heal item, unfortunately. And another thing I could have done with the Kale is I could have moved the Kale into a corner, Bard next to them, and then the Sivir with the Zeeks in the middle, and still gotten even more attack speed value. But at this point, it looks like these fights are going really well, and I'd rather make sure that Bard's safe than try to optimize for a little bit more attack speed. I gotta watch out for the Silas and Udyr trying to flank on the sides with my Bard. And so that's why I'm putting this Riven on the side. The good thing is that with the Wit's End, even if that Silas was able to get onto the Bard, he can still heal back up. So I'm knocking out players left and right. The last player remaining is this Duelist board. And it looks a little bit scary, especially if that Kiana can get into my backline. But the thing is, with the 2 3-star tanks I have in the front line, it's just so hard for them to get over there. And even if the Aurelia, sometimes you have to worry about the Aurelia getting your backline, especially if they're same side. So I finally get the anti-heal with the Sunfire Cape, but unfortunately I don't have a frontline unit to place it on. But going back to the point earlier with the Aurelia, that Wit's End, that's why you need healing. So if, let's say you have a Forbidden Idol on your Tahm Kench, you really want to make sure that you have at least a Gunblade on your Bard. I put the Sunfire in the middle since a bunch of duelists are probably going to be running through the middle at some point, that Kiana. So getting at least a little anti-heal on them helps. All right, and that's a first. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.